How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling. We got Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. This is the only day of the week without a guest, so we're going to take a lot of emails and phone calls, hopefully. Bryan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Bryan, before we start on the wrestling in the ring, have you read any of Mick Foley's book yet?
I just got it, and I read the introduction, but that's it.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm supposed to get it tomorrow, so I have not read it. I've talked to some people who have. They said a lot of it's really funny. So,
yeah,
the stuff where he talks about his career, I'm told is better than the other stuff. But anyway, I was wondering if you had started on it or anything like that. Let's see. What about Raw?
Raw was a show where, as I was watching it and taking notes on it, I kept writing things down like good match. That was a pretty good segment. But then when the show was over, it was like I looked back and the show was just really missing something. And I'm not sure what it was.
Crowd reaction for
crowd reaction. That was one of the main things. And a lot of guys not there. I mean, Undertaker did an interview. Hunter wasn't there at all. Kane wasn't there at all. Chris Benoit was there, but he didn't have a match. And actually, one of the things was, I think it was like during the Jericho Regal cage match. That was a really good match. This was like at the top of the hour. I just thought, okay, Regal's wrestled, Jericho's wrestled, Angle and Benoit have done their things. What the hell is left on this show? And Hunter's gone, so kind of went downhill from that point. But I think the one thing on the show was they decided to elevate people, and they decided to elevate two big guys, Rikishi and Bradshaw. And I really have nothing against Bradshaw, but I mean, I've said this a million times. We've talked about it a million times, but when Bradshaw, who is like a foot taller than Kurt Angle, is standing on the ramp, and Kurt Angle is standing on the ramp in a different segment, does Kurt Angle really look that much smaller than Bradshaw? I mean, does it really matter that Bradshaw's a big guy that he has to get a push, or I don't know. It's just like they have all these talented, great guys, and I know people are going to write letters going, they're elevating somebody and why are you complaining about it? But I just think that there are guys that are a little bit more deserving than Bradshaw. I could be wrong, but that's just the impression that I got.
Well, certainly more than Rikishi, and obviously from the crowd reaction.
And there's the other example of, look, Rikishi's a little skinnier, but he's still a big fat guy. You know, you're pushing a big fat guy with all these great guys in shape here.
But he's a big guy.
He's big. I bet he looks impressive in an airport, and I bet he's scary backstage.
Whenever business goes down, and this is the pattern, they always go back to the big guys. Business is going down. We're going to be seeing more of them, not less of them. The main event last night with Austin Rikishi was the lowest rated main event except for Christmas and New Year's on a Raw show, except for Christmas and New Year's, where the shows where the main event airs at 1 a.m., when they were preempted for tennis or the dog show, in many years. I don't know how many years because I didn't want to look back 3 years ago, week by week, to find out when the last time they did this bad was, but it's many years. And I think that tells you, when the main event is the 5th highest rated match on the show, which it was last night, I think that really tells you something about, especially with Austin in there. It's one thing if there was a main event and it was like Rikishi against Kurt Angle, and it was the 5th highest rated match of the show because Austin had a match and Hunter had a match and Undertaker had a match. But you know what? None of those guys had a match. Lita and Molly Holly did a better rating than the main event, and you're not going to tell me that it's all Austin's fault, or even mainly Austin's fault. It's nobody wanted to see Rikishi. You know what was so sad? I mean, and I saw it right at the beginning of the show, was, first of all, that opening segment went, I don't know how long, 23 minutes. And I'm just thinking, this is going way too long. And the people live thought the same thing. I'm a big fan of Mick Foley, and it was just so sad to see that after, at the beginning they were really, really happy to see him. And then after a couple minutes, you could tell the people just didn't really care. And then when him and Rikishi, they did that thing, they brought back the old music, he went to dance, and all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, Rikishi's dancing to that music. It feels like it's 5 years old, even though it was really only a year old because this business moves so fast.
Not even really that.
Yeah. That music, when did you turn heel?
I think wasn't it like around Survivor, right before Survivor Series?
He turned a little bit
like 7 or 8 months ago.
Okay. Anyway, when he did the heel turn. Okay, so it's not, okay, whatever it is, it just seems so dated to me. And the crowd, there they do all the things, they give him the music, he sits there like that, they turn the lights off, and him and Foley are dancing, and the crowd is not reacting. And I just thought, They do not want to see Rikishi back in the old role. They don't even want to see Rikishi, period. And I already knew the main event was going to be Austin Rikishi, and I thought, you know what, it's going to be real flat. And it was. And it also, what was tough about it was, had this audience who, of course, they all want to cheer Austin. They don't give a crap about Rikishi. And so you have a main event with no crowd reaction. Even Jericho and Regal, I mean, they did some really good stuff in that cage match, and, great facials and this and that, but, the crowd was dead for that match.
Yeah. They were struggling. I mean, one of the things with the facials, though, I guess you can't really put the blame on this because they have the big screen, but it's kind of hard to see facials when the guys are in a cage, but, if you can see it on TV, the fans can see it on the Titantron, so should have meant something. Yeah.
That was the highest rated segment of the show, and that was only a 4.9. Let me see what else. Tajiri did work in a dark match against Sho Funaki, and Tajiri got beat, and from the live reports we got, we were told that was better than any match on the show, so anyway, he worked, and Devin Storm worked. Let's see what else. Was anyone else there that was new? There's somebody else. Loki worked with S.A. Rios. Actually, I heard they had a pretty good match too. That's going to air on the syndicated this weekend, which I never watched syndicated, but I actually almost want to watch it just for that match. Let's see. I don't know. Any other stuff you want to talk about regarding that show? Let me grab my notes here on it. But that was like my big thought on, I don't know, just a flat show. Rating was a 4.6, which is, I mean, what is it? It's like, they're now
4.6 with no Nitro.
They're now drawing a lower rating than they were drawing against Nitro. I mean, what does that tell you about that 2 million plus fans that used to watch Nitro? In fact, actually this week, what was interesting about this week is when Raw and Nitro were at their peak, what was the peak? About 18 months ago? I don't remember exactly the time frame.
Mid-98?
Yeah, 98. Probably, let's see, peak? What would have been the peak? Before, I think 99 was the peak, actually. Early 99. Because Raw's numbers were really, really high in early 99, and Nitro's were just starting to fall. So I'm guessing early 99. So it's 2 years ago. Okay, 2 years ago at the peak, they were doing 12 million viewers on Monday Night for Wrestling, which is a hell of a number. Last night was the first night, except for Christmas, which really shouldn't count, that they were actually below 6 million. So we're now half of the viewership that wrestling was at its peak. Partially because there's no Nitro, but partially just also because the WWF audience is falling. And see, the way the ratings pattern looked also is that the first hour did not bad at all. It did what a typical first hour would do. It fell apart after the Regal Jericho match. From that point forward, which was
that's where it fell apart for me.
Yeah, Molly Holly.
Thinking, what's left?
Yeah, Molly Holly and Lita actually didn't drop that much in the ratings, but it was a drop. And then Dudley's and X Factor was a pretty damn big drop in the ratings. And then that segment where they did the rock stuff, the rock, all that rock publicity.
Yeah,
that one dropped a lot. Not a lot, but just down to a 4.2. 4.2 at that 10:45 hour is pretty hideous. And that's the story on why the rating was down. So it wasn't so much that when the show started, people weren't interested. It was that the show, after the Regal match,
as it was going
they started losing interest. Yeah. Heat was up to a 1.7, so that's positive. Maybe it's not positive, I don't know. The thing with
I watched about 5 minutes of that show, and I couldn't bring myself to watch anymore, but I didn't think the 5 minutes was hideous, but the fact that I didn't want to watch anymore says that it was probably a hell of an hour.
Well, the one thing on something like that is that, if you're going to do a show, 60 minutes on one guy, okay, to draw a rating, there's really about 4 guys in the company you can do, and then you're out of guys, because, you could probably
do Big Show next week.
And that's one of the guys who you can't do right there. So
is he one of the 4?
Well, I don't know.
He didn't do too bad on that conference call, but I don't know, being asked questions by people in WWF New York. That's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, the other thing that was so bad, another thing that was bad about the show was, at the WWF New York, the one thing is that if you're a heel and you're at WWF New York, the crowd reaction is you're a babyface. So they put Angle at WWF New York and everyone's cheering him. They put Benoit at the Nassau Coliseum and nobody's cheering him. And I mean, it just made, God, Benoit as a babyface just looked terrible last night.
Yeah.
That's not working. Benoit as a babyface isn't working. I don't know. The four-way for the light heavyweight title was a 2-minute match. I mean, it was fine.
I thought the one spot with Eddie Guerrero where Rhino gored him to death, I thought that was awesome.
So did I. Yep. I thought that was
totally
the best.
Awesome.
The way that,
I mean, you couldn't even have better timing. There's just no way. It was perfect.
Yep. You're right. That was really good. And I thought Dudley's and X Factor was the best match on the show. I just liked the way that thing was. I don't know. That's pretty much the stuff there. UPN is having its affiliates meeting as we speak, as a matter of fact, in Salt Lake City. And one of the things that they're talking about is the future of the XFL. And the decision will be made by the 17th, which will probably be the decision on the future. If they say negative, there probably will be no XFL. And there's actually, some talk that they will keep it because they'll take it out of prime time so that it won't be the lowest rated primetime show in the country. There were some station managers that were there that were liking it. There were some that didn't.
And were quite uninformed.
Yeah. Well, the ones that, on both sides, they were quite uninformed. I mean, I thought what was great is, the XFL gives UPN a chance to attract companies trying to reach the men 18 to 34, a free-spending, hard-to-reach demographic. The only problem is that it doesn't reach that demographic very well. I mean, in theory, if it did, but it didn't.
Yep.
I know, but I think the quote, and I sent this to Bryan earlier, that was so funny, is this is from Adam Ware, who's the CEO of UPN, and he said, "If you step back and breathe, you realize that an average of 7 million people watched XFL games. There's plenty of leagues that would be happy with half that number." And he's right. There's plenty of leagues that would be thrilled with half that number. One of them is the XFL. I mean, SmackDown.
It really says something when you're the head of the network and you can't even figure out your own ratings.
What does that say? SmackDown, which is the highest rated show on UPN, does about 7 million viewers, or was doing 7 million viewers up through the end of January. Now it's probably just below. But anyway, the average number of viewers for the UPN games was about 1.66 million, and by the end of the season they were under 1 million. So, I mean, there may be leagues happy with half of that, and there even would be leagues happy with 1/7 of that, which is what the XFL actually got. It was a little under 1/7 of what he said. But when you've got the CEO of the network quoting a number that is so, it's so ridiculous. What the hell is this? I don't know. I mean, I used to think, Vince was bad when he's making up numbers. You know what I mean? I mean, all of a sudden, I don't know about that.
At least Vince is making it up, and there's a point for him making it up. Adam Ware has no point. There's no point for him to make this number up, except to save a league that's not doing very well, which doesn't make any sense. If you're a wrestling fan, I was thinking about this one today as I was going over the numbers. Pray this football league dies.
Okay, and tell us why. Because I just wrote it, but tell us why. You were so right, Bryan, about this. If you're a football fan and a wrestling fan, you better think about this. And this is not someone who's against the XFL. I would like the XFL to succeed because it's more jobs, and also it would make Vince McMahon look better in the public's eye if he has a football league that's successful to go along with wrestling. It would, in some sense, legitimize wrestling to many people. However, that didn't happen. Now, next year, if this football league loses the kind of money that it did this year, and there's no indications that it won't lose as much, and probably more because it's not going to have NBC exposure that it had, and it's not going to have primetime exposure that it had. So if anything, with lower exposure, it will be lower income and it will lose more money, especially because they're going to add 2 more teams. If wrestling continues, the wrestling side continues to make a profit of $90 million a year, that company's a money loser next year. Or on the verge of breaking even, depending on how much NBC is going to kick in as a penalty. If the WF profits drop, and if ratings are dropping and attendance is dropping, and WCW is thrown in the mix, and it also doesn't make money at the beginning, which is very likely, and you throw in the XFL, there's going to have to be major economic cutbacks made next year in WWF. And as soon as major cutbacks come down on a business that's spiraling downward, like wrestling may very well be, that's a very scary time a year from now in wrestling. With no XFL, I don't say losses, but the drop in revenue of the WWF will be a lot easier to handle because let's face it, WWF drops in, if just the WWF side of this business goes from, say, a $90 million profit this year, and it drops to a $40 million profit next year, I'm just throwing a number out.
It's still making $40 million profit.
It's still making $40 million, and no one's going to worry about spending a lot of money on production or spending money on talent or spending money on improvements at WWF New York or anything. No one's going to think twice about spending money. Now, if that company's losing $20 million in the year, they're going to think about every single thing that they spend money on, and that's it's just not as good in every way. It'll make the wrestling worse too because they'll be afraid to spend money on things, just on a lot of different things. So anyway, if you're, a lot of people who think that they're very loyal to WWF and think, come on, we want that league to make it. I want you to think this through. Anyway, let's look at let's look at the poll question for Monday. Let's see what this is. That's actually a different day. But I'll go through this one because we forgot to get to it. On SmackDown, this was not that good. What did you think of SmackDown? We had 6% excellent, 10% good, 19% average, 23% bad, and 43% awful, which actually surprises me because...
You know what? I don't know if it's people jumping on the bandwagon or what it is, but we have got so much negative feedback about the WWF in like the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I know. Do you think the WWF should sign Bill Goldberg? And I was very surprised at the results of this. 13% said yes because WCW will be a failure without him. 31% said yes because he'll pay for himself with buy rates. 39%, which is the highest number, said no, his salary is too high and it will disrupt the pay scale. And 17% said no because his salary is too high and he will not pay for himself at the box office. So it was basically 56 to 44. They should not sign Bill Goldberg, which is probably what they're going to do. But I was surprised by those results because I'm pretty sure you disagree with that, don't you? Based on just
I really think they should bring him in.
Okay. Let's see. The K1 pay-per-view on May 18th in Canada will not be a tape of the show that was taped over the weekend in Vegas. It will be a tape of the Tokyo Dome show from December. The Galavision Wrestling block, according to all the commercials on the station, will start at 7 p.m. Eastern and 7 p.m. Pacific if you get it on a broadcast channel, 4 p.m. if you get it on the satellite. So it's starting an hour early. I don't know if it's going to be a 3-hour block or a 4-hour block. I guess we'll find out tonight. And any other news to get to before we start hitting emails?
I saw Rock was on the cover of, I think it's Entertainment Weekly this week.
Yes, he was. I haven't seen the story, though.
No, I just saw it when I was passing by.
Oh, so you didn't see the story either?
No, not yet.
Okay. If those of you who get Japanese videos, got a match you got to look out for. It was on last Saturday's New Japan TV show. It was Minoru Tanaka against Takehiro Murahama for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title. That match is awesome. It's one of the best matches of the year. The Noah TV show from last Friday ended up being 2 matches from the 0-1 pay-per-view. So they did it again. I don't know. Do you think I know there's an argument because pay-per-view is in its infancy in Japan, and so few people really get it. That if you have a great match on pay-per-view, literally no one except the super hardcore fans are going to see it. But on the other end, when you're giving away your pay-per-view matches,
you can only do it for so long.
Yeah.
I really think it should be done at the beginning just to let these people know that this is what you can get if you spring for this pay-per-view. But you can only do it for so long. Pretty soon it's just going to be like, well, okay, we don't need to get pay-per-view because we see them all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I know people from Japan that have, emailed me, and they're just like, we're not going to buy this pay-per-view because we're just going to wait to see it on TV for free. And that's not the attitude that you want the consumers to have.
And you're really stuck because, you could just say, well, let's air some of the undercard matches from the pay-per-view, but then you're giving away something for free that, isn't as good as the main events, and you're telling, you're showing people something that they really wouldn't want to pay for. You really have to show them something good, but at the same time, you can't do it for so long that they get to the point where they don't want to buy the pay-per-views because they're going to get it for free.
Yesterday I was watching WrestleMania 14, and Aguila looks like S.A. Rios. Is that really him? Yes, it is. And what the hell is up with China and Lita and that spanking thing?
Oh my God, that was so horrible last night.
Right, it's been horrible.
That was so horrible when they were spanking each other and giggling.
Yeah, was that...
It's like every week they make me want to see it less and less. It's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. It's from Harry, who goes, with the exception of X Factor's music and Stephanie's voice, I liked Raw. Guerrero taking the gore, meant for Lita was classic old school. The enemy of my enemy is my friend booking. That's Heyman stuff, I'm pretty sure. I think it's too much to hope that the sneaky Latino heat we all know and love steals Lita from Matt. Huh, I bet so. I'm probably reading too much into something, but it looks like they're planting the seeds of Matt as a Randy Savage-esque, jealous, possessive beau. I thought the same thing. If anything, it looks like a heel turn for Matt is on the horizon because Lita's the number one face on the women's side. I just hope that Jeff Hardy and Christian enjoy their new curtain-jerking tag team when the inevitable splits come. They'll do better than that if they actually make Jeff Hardy and Christian a tag team. That'd be a hell of a team. Although Lita's new push does beg the question, why is nothing being done with Trish? Why? The only reason they did anything with her was because they got shamed into doing like one angle with her, and they had no idea what to do. That was not about her. It's almost enough that you want to recycle the line about Triple H noticing that she's got long blonde hair. By the way, did you notice how dark Chris Jericho's hair was last night?
I did notice that, but I'll go back and look.
Yeah? Oh, go back when he does the interview. I mean, it's like the bottom, basically he's not
dying anymore.
The new hair that's coming in is totally dark. I think there's a political reason for that. The low point, maybe just forgot. Maybe he's just been busy and hasn't dyed it. I don't know. The low point of Raw was
Ross made some comment about Jericho and politics last night. I cannot remember what it was, but
I missed it.
Actually, Ross made a ton of really weird comments that they weren't done like normal inside comments are done, where they're meant so people like you can figure out what the hell they're talking about. But it was almost like Ross said things. And I must have been reading way too much into all of them, but it was, I don't know, just weird. A lot of weird politics talk about Jericho. I didn't know if it was a coincidence or not.
Yeah, and then he goes, let's see. The low point of the show was Chris Benoit sheepishly looking to an indifferent crowd for approval before burying Kurt Angle's gold medal into his family jewels. I felt bad for the guy at the very least. Shouldn't this have led to Benoit challenging Angle to a ladder match at Judgment Day? God, not another ladder match. It's like It
was so backwards, though, because you got Angle, like you were talking about earlier. He's the babyface in WWF New York. Here's Chris Benoit, who's a thief in the storyline, stole this dude's medals, and it was just, It was like that angle where Benoit was supposed to turn face.
With Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's like, like teasing him, taunting him. Eddie's wanting to fight him. Eddie's being held back.
Yeah.
One last thing, Rikishi. I think someone in a booking meeting misunderstood the term. We're a little light on the babyface side this week. Hey, did Rikishi ever stop to think about how all this makes Haku feel? Oh, hell, we're going to have to watch them feud. Granted, Rikishi as a heel was a flop, but how the hell can they book him as a babyface after he ran a guy over? It's kind of like trying when they tried to turn Sergeant
Slaughter. He ran
Steve
Austin over, and Steve Austin's a bad guy now.
So I guess he was justified all along.
Yes.
Nobody thought of it that way.
He saw the future. He saw the evil that was Steve Austin and wanted to put a stop to it.
That's right, and he was really standing up for The Rock.
Yes.
Austin was the one standing his way.
Me versus Triple H. I mean, what the heck's his problem? I thought we could be friends.
Yeah, he's the game, all right, if the game's pin the tail on the two-faced Rikazoid.
I mean, I don't even have time to change. This was supposed to be my night off.
Kurt, don't worry about it. It's real simple. You take care of Triple H. Kick the snot out of his never-ending nose, and then afterwards, we'll all have cake.
Yeah, cake rocks the body that rocks the party. Come on, Kurt, man, cheer up. Listen, I'll play your music for you. 2, 3, 4.
Angle. Guys, cripes on Friday. Would you give me some time alone, please? Please?
Suit yourself, man.
Angle.
The reason Raw's ratings was so low was because Triple H was not on the show. Actually, believe it or not, when the show was over, I thought that he was sitting there going like, Rikishi and Austin in the main event. This is probably a good week to not be on the show. But I don't know if that's the case. He was there. I mean, so why wouldn't do an interview? I'm sure there's a reason. I don't know what it is.
Why didn't they just say he was still in jail? Because everyone gets out of jail in like an hour for much worse crimes than he committed?
Because he was in England. He already got out of jail to go to England.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Maybe he caused a problem in England on the airplane.
People would believe that. How many times have we heard that one? Guys go overseas, they get into trouble. Scott Hall, Juventud Guerrera, Sid Vicious, Arn Anderson.
Regal.
Probably more. Vader. You know what I mean? That used to be the common theme. Every time they left the country, someone was ending up in jail. Let's see. It's from Scott Foy, who goes, so the fan who jumped on the ring apron and got in Vince's face at the beginning of Raw, was he an angry British fan who followed the WWF back to the United States? No. Okay. How
Did you hear
ironic
what he said to Vince?
No, I didn't.
You're the man.
Oh, is that what he said?
Yep, I played it back like 10 times.
Oh, God. How ironic that yesterday's show featured a discussion about stupid wrestling fans because if ignorance is bliss, then last night at the Nassau Coliseum was the happiest place on earth. God, that was a great line. That's something that you could have written, Brian. That was really clever. If the fan that tried to crash the ring and that idiot in the front row next to Foley who kept mugging for the camera like a moron were bad enough, there were also those two embarrassing signs that got on camera and will be forever etched in my mind. The first was the hockey fan holding up the Go Islanders sign, which was misspelled, by the way, during the opening segment, Islanders without an L. That was very impressive. And then when the Hardys came out and the camera gave us a close-up of the flying Hardy Boys, flying was spelled F-L-I-G-H-I-N-G. Anyway, he goes, how I weep for the American educational system. You know what? I used to notice this when Raw and Nitro were on, was that the spelling of the signs on Nitro was hideous, whereas Raw, it was never quite as bad. So maybe what's happened is that the good spellers are the ones that have stopped watching wrestling, and actually the WCW audience is still around. I don't know.
That could be.
I don't know.
Maybe it was just because that was during the hot period. There were more casual fans and more mainstream fans that were unable to write.
Why would they be more? Why would casual fans be necessarily?
Well, just because there was a larger audience, you would have just more people that would not be able to write in a larger audience. You know what I mean?
Okay, but they couldn't. But they couldn't.
I don't want to make fun of anybody, but let's just put it this way: when this show first started, we had all Observer readers calling in, and we had a lot of very intelligent phone calls. And as the audience for this show has grown, how can I put this? The number of really horrible calls that we have got has skyrocketed. Not meaning to put anybody on the spot here. And the same with feedback on the website. When the website was in its infancy, we had a lot of really good letters, and as more people are visiting this website, we get a lot more horrible feedback.
Okay. Which do you think is worse, a Triple H versus Kane feud or a Triple H versus Rikishi feud? Yeah, that's the one thing, because Triple H did set himself up for a feud with Rikishi, so how smart could he really be?
He just beats him once, it's over.
Oh, okay. Didn't Stephanie get stink-faced once before, leading to a feud with Hunter? I don't remember. I remember, like, Trish and Terry Runnels getting stink-faced. She might have. I think maybe she did. Anyway, someone will let us know. Let's see. On Friday's show, you were discussing how Bret Hart came up with a sharpshooter as his finishing maneuver. I don't know if this is 100% accurate, but...
Wait a second. We didn't say that.
What?
That Bret Hart came up with it?
No, how he did. We were talking about the sharpshooter, the origins and everything. We were. Because I said, Masa Saito invented it, Ricky Choshu popularized it, Buddy Rose saw it in Japan, Sting sold it.
I thought this guy was saying that we were talking about how Bret invented it.
No. Anyway, there's a quote in the and I remember the story. Conan was the one who showed Bret Hart because Conan was working in Calgary, and this was at the time when Bret Hart did the turn and needed a new finishing hold because he wasn't doing the tag team anymore. And he just and Bret Hart was in the dressing room, I guess in Calgary, and just goes, "Hey, somebody teach me how to do that hold that Ricky Choshu does." And then Conan showed him how to do it, and that is the story. Although Bret Hart does not have that same story. That's Conan's version of the story. So,
I always laugh in wrestling where the commentators say something like, "So-and-so was taught this hold by so-and-so," and it's like a figure four or something like that. It's always like, what does that mean? I mean, is it really that hard to figure out how to do a figure four on your own? Does this person have to go to the wrestling school for 3 hours to work on the figure four, and after the end they just go, "Let's call it a day. We'll work on it some more tomorrow." Maybe you'll
but I mean, but it was always cool. Like Jack Briscoe, when he was the master of the figure four in the 70s, he was taught it by Eddie Graham, who was the original master. So that way they had the secret technique.
Oh yes, the secret technique.
Well, I remember Bill Watts explained this one once. Because the knee lift. If those of you remember, knee lift was just this move it's never even done anymore.
You hit him with. Well, actually, I did it Saturday.
Well, you're retro, I guess. But anyway, I haven't seen the knee lift since Raven tried it on ECW to get everyone to chant, 222, and nobody did because it was just too far back and no one remembered. So, but he tried it. But anyway, the knee lift it's not even used. But Mr. Wrestling 2 in the 70s used to do that as his finisher, and the early 80s. And the place, in Georgia, and he worked other territories, to the 222, and everybody would do that. It was a pretty big deal and everything. Well, anyway, Bill Watts was always in for credibility, and guys were doing knee lifts left and right, and then he brought Mr. Wrestling 2 into the territory, who was using the knee lift as the finisher, and Bill Watts had this big thing where he was explaining, like, it's the technique and this and that. It's not a normal knee lift. He's got this special technique, so that's how he got it over. Let's see, this is from Kevin, who goes, were they trying to do a double turn and make Kurt Angle a face and Benoit a heel? No, they were not, but
they were just...
If not, this whole angle with Benoit stealing Kurt's medal is going to backfire. Just look at the mixed reaction Benoit got last night. Even though he's supposed to be the good guy and Angle's supposed to be the bad guy, he's a Canadian stealing a U.S. Olympic gold medal and sticking them down his pants.
He's stealing.
Yes. During Raw, when I saw the fan at ringside yelling at McMahon, my first thought was, is that Russo? McMahon isn't returning his call, so why not do a run-in contract negotiation?
He did say you're the man, so it might have been Russo.
Yeah. This is from Scott Shapiro, who goes...
I like how Vince just stood there and looked at him.
Yeah.
He didn't move or anything. He just looked at his fan like, what in the hell are you on my apron for?
And then, like, Regal was just looking ready to beat the hell out of him.
I know.
And he was just
sitting there.
The guy
was, like, grabbing the ropes, and Regal just grabs his hand and breaks his grip.
Yeah. This is from Scott Shapiro, who goes, I'm 9 chapters into Mick Foley's book. So far, the book is not as interesting as the first book, but I think wrestling fans will be entertained by it. There's a lot of funny lines in it, and his comment on the I Quit match with Rock add a lot more insight to the ending of the Beyond the Mat movie. So that's probably interesting. This is from Derek, who goes, what the news of Scott Hall? Is he going to be in the new WCW or not? Because on the internet, they are saying he's going to be with the new WCW. God, would that be a sign of desperation or what?
Do not hold your breath waiting for that one.
I have not heard anything about them considering Scott Hall. I haven't checked on that. Oh, speaking of which, the negotiations for the time slot between TNN and WWF are going very slowly. They are not going to, it doesn't look like they're going to make June at all. September is probably further than anyone expects. Trying to give a date or any estimation. Until the deal's done, there's no startup, okay? And
the angle has cooled off so much that it totally doesn't even matter now.
Oh, you mean when?
Just wait until they can do it right. Why rush it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it starts in August or it starts in November. It's all the same anyway, other than they're paying guys salaries for a couple of months that, they're not going to be using. I know this whole China Lita spanking thing is designed to pander to the horny male demographic, but there was just something about Lita giving China those slaps on her bottom, and they're giggling like 11-year-old girls that seems a little bit unsettling, I dare say creepy. Yes, I felt the same way. It was
creepy. And the weird thing is they got a bunch of 20-year-old guys writing this TV, or at least on the writing crew, and you think at least one of them would come forward and go, this is not arousing at all. It's kind of disgusting.
Yeah. This is...
It's not like you got a bunch of 60-year-old guys like Kevin Sullivan or something writing TV.
60? Oh, my God.
Kevin Sullivan and Dusty Rhodes booking this angle.
Do you know that Kevin is... what was I going to say? You know that Kevin Sullivan is, afraid to go to any indie shows because he's got this $300,000 a year deal with Time Warner, and he just thinks that if he's even seen at a show that they'll, consider it a breach. There was, some indie show that was, 3 minutes from his house a couple weeks ago, and, they just go, hey, Kevin, come by, and it's no, because what if the word gets back that I'm seen at a show?
Can you wear a mask?
I don't know. This is from Tom, who goes, what are your thoughts on Phil Mushnick's comments about the UFC? Boy, I disagreed with him. He wrote on Sunday. It's funny. What did he say? He basically criticized the Meadowlands and the Trump Taj Mahal for allowing the UFC into those buildings. Let me see. Let me get the exact wording. Hold on. It says, nice to see both Donald Trump's Taj Mahal in Atlantic City and the Continental Airlines Arena at the Meadowlands are now in business of hosting Ultimate Fighting Championships, an unmitigated blood sport designed solely for the entertainment pleasure of the bloodthirsty and their kids. So that's what he wrote. Yeah.
Were you watching UFC 1 before he wrote this article?
I wish that he had called me before this because I think that's kind of unfair. What's the difference between them booking, them booking that or the Garden booking boxing? I think it's pretty much the same thing, isn't it? Now the one thing I could say with Mushnick, because I've had discussions with him about UFC before, and he is also, he doesn't like boxing, so I never could get him for being a hypocrite. Because most of the people who criticize UFC are boxing people, so they're total hypocrites. But with Mushnick, it's just a disagreement. I can't call him a hypocrite. Nevertheless, as far as, getting on the buildings for booking this stuff, any building that, what is he going to get on buildings for booking boxing or pro wrestling? I mean, actually, he would for pro wrestling, but I don't know. I totally disagree. Anyway, Sunday night.
But the fact that it's legal in New Jersey, it's not like it's illegal. Like, the way he wrote it, it sounded like,
it's an underground band.
Exactly, but there are rules. I mean, I just don't think that Phil was informed that there are rules and that it's
but the thing is, obviously it's legal or it wouldn't be held.
Well,
I mean, if it was illegal, the Meadowlands wouldn't give him the date, so he would have nothing to write about.
No, that's true. But I mean, wouldn't it have behooved him just a little bit to maybe even pick up the phone and call you just to find out about it, because you guys have talked about it before?
Yes, it would have, and he didn't.
Right.
So he's wrong, and he shouldn't have written that without at least researching it a little bit. And the other thing is, as far as the kids and everything, it's like, I wasn't at the last show at the Taj, but I was at the show before that. There was not that many little kids there, like none, except for like maybe some Sons of Fighters, right?
Right.
I mean,
I think, for the most part, because Eddie had asked me this question earlier today, I think the average age of the couple of kids that were there, 13, 14, maybe. I mean, if that, maybe a little bit older. So, I mean, you can walk into a casino at 14 or 15. You just can't go onto the casino gaming floor. So there's no law that says you can't go to the arena, and I didn't see anybody checking anybody for ID that it had to be 18 or over, but there wasn't anybody like 7 or 8 years old there.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I mean, UFC, but even if there was, there are people 7 or 8 years old at WWF, and WWF to a 7 or 8 year old is
there were any 5-year-olds with foam middle fingers there?
No, there wasn't.
Let's see. This is from John, who says, Sunday Night Heat was much better with no matches. When was the last time you saw a good match on Heat? I haven't been watching Heat, but I know there was, because you saw it, right, Brian?
Yeah, I saw Eddie Guerrero and Test. That wasn't too bad.
Yeah. They should turn Heat into a shoot interview. I don't want to hear about shoot interviews on WWF.
Interview.
No, there's no such thing. Whenever you hear the word...
What happened to that insider terms thing we used to have on the website? People need to read that again.
Shoot interview means new form of work interview, right?
I guess it does now.
Yeah. Anyway, if Triple H was told by Vince personally that he had to elevate either a top face or a top heel, he could choose among the list of Jericho, Benoit, Angle, Regal, either Hardy Brother, and Rikishi. Who would he choose? You got to ask him. I don't know. I bet
Regal.
I'd guess Benoit, but maybe Regal. I don't know. I know that the word that comes indirectly out of his mouth is Jericho's a lousy worker, hurts everybody, right? Mm-hmm. Benoit can have a real good match if he's carried.
If he's carried, yeah.
If he's carried, yes. Angle had got too much too soon, right? Didn't pay his dues.
I haven't heard that one yet, but
you haven't? Oh no, he was complaining the whole time that guy was champ. That he's way too soon, hasn't paid his dues, didn't work any territories. You know that.
I heard the didn't pay his dues part, but
yeah. Regal, I haven't heard him say anything bad about. You know what? You're right. It for sure would be Regal, because Regal was sort of a mentor form when he broke in anyway. Remember? Mm-hmm. So I would bet you he'd pick Regal. Either Hardy, forget that. Rikishi's always this. I don't know. It's easier to do that. He pretty much made Rikishi. Remember that when Rikishi was just some guy and they put him against Triple H on I think it was a SmackDown match. That pretty much was the match that made Rikishi.
That's right. I remember that. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it's a hell of a match. That's from Scott, who goes, "While I don't mind Bradshaw, he really does lumber around the ring. He simply isn't smooth or graceful. He almost seems Frankenstein-like the way he moves around the ring. I keep waiting for him to yell, 'Fire, bad.'" Oh no. This is from
the promotion we could create with some of these ideas.
Yes, this is from Paul from Virginia, who goes, "I remember on Friday that you were talking about the Iron Sheik and how you have never seen any evidence of him ever being in the Olympic Games. Not to bust on other sites," which of course means he's about to do that.
But I saw an interview.
No. Perhaps you should inform OneWrestling.com about this. On their AskOneWrestling.com, we should do like Ask the Couch. How's that? So that way, we don't have to take credit when we do smart-ass answers on the website. We'll just say Ask the Couch, okay? So anyway, AskOneWrestling.com section where they answer questions, emailed. They responded to a question about the Iron Sheik on this very subject, and they stated that he won a bronze medal in the 1972 Olympics. I have a book with a history of medal winners, so I looked under all the major events. Believe me, if he had won a bronze medal when I wrote that story in the Olympics, I'd have found it. So anyway, he just goes, I looked up under Greco-Roman and freestyle in 1972 and 1968 in the 90-kilogram weight classes up, and saw nobody from Iran placing in those categories. I do not know the Iron Sheik's real name, Hossein Khosrow Vaziri. That's his real name. However, I assume he really was Iranian. You are assuming correctly. So obviously he never won any medal in an Olympic Games. You are assuming correctly again. I don't know where whoever answered got that particular question got their information from. It was everyone in wrestling believed it because he said it and nobody checked. And I believed it too until I started researching it, and we looked up the Olympic records, and he was never in the Olympics. I mean, the other one we couldn't find any record of that everyone assumes was in the Olympics because he's been saying it for 50 years is Karl Gotch. There's no record of Karl Istaz in the Olympics. Now, in the 48 Olympics, the records are not quite as good. I mean, they're not quite as well kept, so there is a chance that he was. I mean, I accept the possibility that Karl Gotch wrestled in the Olympics in 48, but Iron Sheik was never in the Olympics. But he was a hell of an amateur wrestler. I mean, when he came to this country...
Probably why nobody questioned him.
Yeah. Because when he came to this country, I mean, he competed at a very high level and he won the national, I think it was AAU championships at 181 in the early 70s. So, yeah, that's probably why. You know, your guy comes in here, whips on everybody, says he was in the Olympics, and, you know, he was probably good enough to be in the Olympics or close to it. So, you know, that's probably why he was able to get away with it.
Listen, boys, I realize you don't like me, okay? That's beside the point. But I have a plan for tonight, okay? And I just want you to hear me out. It has everything to do with mathematics. Listen to this. H cubed plus I cubed is greater than D cubed. You understand? What the hell are you talking about? Here, let me explain. Triple H, your 3 H's plus my 3 I's can easily overcome the 3 D's of the Dudleys. Understand that? Do you want me to go a little slower, maybe? No, you know where I'd like you to go, Kurt? I'd like you to go to hell. Now, why don't you get out of here? Wow, you're not showing much team spirit, are you?
Hey, who wrote that stuff? I think
I have no idea.
They need to hire him back. Anyway, this is from Keith, who says, on the pay-per-view, which was WrestleMania a couple of years ago, with Butterbean and Bart Gunn, was that match a work or a shoot?
The fact that you have not seen Bart Gunn since should tell you the answer to that question.
That match was the only, or not the only, because all the Brawl, or pretty much all the Brawl for All matches were about the only shoot matches in the history of the WWF.
That would be the only one in the history of WrestleMania.
And they will be the only ones in the history of the WWF as long as Vince McMahon is alive or anyone with a memory of Brawl for All is alive. Someone's going to come up with that idea again. Oh, my God. Actually, you know what? Of all the stupid ideas, you know how people just copy, we talk about independent promotions, they copy ideas that are really dumb, copy like angles that failed miserably, so then they do them because they think because they were on TV. You notice that none of them actually did copy the Brawl for All? I think they were probably too scared.
You know what I've seen them copy, though, is those stupid fake boxing matches. Boxers, and it ends with a body slam or something. Yeah. I see those matches and I go, I wish you guys would just copy Brawl for All.
No, I wish they wouldn't, because guys get hurt. When you get guys that don't know how to box, and they're big guys, and they're all roided up, and they're out there boxing, they can tear muscles real easy. I mean, we heard how many torn hamstrings, and, Savio Vega's neck, and, you know what I mean? Guys got hurt. Mark Canterbury never wrestled again, did he? Or did he do a comeback? I don't remember, but he got hurt real bad.
I don't think he did.
Yeah, I think that might have been it for him. Who else was never, Steve Williams was gone for months. It basically killed him forever in the WWF. Killed Bart Gunn forever in the WWF, and he won the damn thing. You know what's so funny is that Bart Gunn, destroyed Bradshaw. And to this day, if you ask people, who's tougher, Bart Gunn or Bradshaw, they'll all say Bradshaw.
He's bigger.
He got plowed in, 54 seconds or something?
Yeah.
I think he tore his hamstring, too. I know Godfather tore his hamstring. Everyone did. Anyway, this is from Larry, who says, I am a wrestling fan and a Raiders fan, but I refuse to watch the XFL and won't watch the WWF. I'm holding out for the return of WCW.
Keep holding, buddy.
I know. Anyway, I have a comment on your Ray Stevens tribute. Try to get Pat Patterson on. Hey, listen, I'd love to get Pat Patterson on, but we've got to be realistic. It ain't happening. Let's see. What do you think they're going to do now for Jericho and Regal as far as the next pay-per-view? I don't know.
I think that feud's over. That's pretty much the way Ross was talking about it last night.
Yes, and Heyman even more. Heyman was really pushing that whoever wins this wins the feud. And they also kind of pushed to me the Dudley's X Factor thing might be over as well. Because remember they were talking about this is the match to decide the feud? So I think they're going in other directions with those guys. Now, they may be doing Benoit and Jericho against Edge and Christian at some point. Because you notice, remember when they did that thing?
That would be a hell of a match.
Yeah, and it's something new anyway. So anyway, let's see. Ross said, the issues between Jericho and Regal are not done yet because of political reasons. They're not done yet. Okay.
Oh.
Let's see. This is from John in Toronto. Says, I think Vince is going to have to realize that having these same guys in the main event is the reason for the rating slide. Actually, it's not the same guys in the main event. It's the lack of elevation of new guys. I mean, these guys that are there, I don't think any of them necessarily need to be moved down, although I could live without Kane.
Rikishi.
But Rikishi, adding Rikishi to the mix, anyway, he's going to have to elevate Jericho one way or another. Don't hold your breath. It's obvious Vince doesn't want to listen to the fans' reaction, which is sad. Jericho's over with the fans and always will be. It's frustrating to see this. Hey, he was a lot more over a year ago than he is now, though. Let's see. Who has a brighter future, Brock Lesnar or Prototype? God, it's way too early to speculate, but I would say the one who will get the best chance and the best push initially, and he may fail, but will get the best chance would be Brock Lesnar because he's the bigger guy of the two. Let's go to Chris. We're going to start with you. What's going on?
How's it going?
It's going really good.
I was at the show last night at Raw, and
did you jump up on the apron?
No, and I didn't know who he was either. So,
did you write those signs?
No, I didn't write any signs. I saw some of the signs. I wanted to snatch them away before they got into the building. Now, just made everybody.
When fans want to confiscate signs, that's bad.
I did. I said that to my friend. I was like,
the WWF. They confiscated all those signs, people booing Rock and everything.
Mm-hmm.
They should confiscate every sign. I'll just say it like because grammatically incorrect. Exactly because right now sponsors have a low opinion of our product. No, this is just I'm being half serious. Only half.
I agree.
They should have a sign at the door and just go, do not, because this is the World Wrestling Federation. We spend millions and millions of dollars to entertain you every week. Do not embarrass us. So therefore, right at the door when you walk in, do not embarrass us. Do not make us look stupid. Do not make it look like our fans are morons. Therefore, show us your sign, and if it's grammatically incorrect, we are going to confiscate it for that very reason.
Yeah.
How about in the program, they have a list of commonly used words on the signs that the fans can use to write their signs.
So they spell the words
Sucks, right? Chop.
316.
The game.
All the sellout signs now, and what's weird too is I see a couple of these sellout 316 signs, and I'm telling you the whole reaction on TV because everybody kept telling me how the crowd was dead, and a lot of points the crowd was dead, but there were points where the crowd was really into the show, and it just didn't. I saw some of the tape afterwards. It didn't come off on TV. I mean, Foley, we went nuts for Foley. I mean, everybody in that place was chanting his name.
At the beginning it was real obvious they did, but I think after 23 minutes...
It died down after a while, and then there were points like when Jericho came out of the cage and won that match, he got a big pop. And there were certain points of that match there were pops. And there was a lot also during the matches, it was almost like it was quiet. Then they would pop for stuff, it was like oohs and ahs for certain moves, so the crowd was into the show. And there were points where, when Rikishi was dancing, the crowd really wasn't into Rikishi himself. But when he was dancing with Foley, it was the kind of thing where everybody was on their feet, everybody was watching, everybody was into it, and a lot of people were smiling and laughing and stuff, but it wasn't that loud noise reaction, so it's it didn't come off as well on TV as far as the crowd being into it, because I got people telling me, when I got home, they were like, oh, the crowd was so dead, and they weren't as dead as everybody's telling me, and when I watched the show, I could see how everybody would see that, and then Austin got a huge pop when he came out. I mean, people stood and cheered, and it was I'm looking around and I'm going, you guys aren't supposed to be doing that. It's just I watched it on TV and you couldn't hear anything. So it sounded like they were dead for him, but he legitimately got a pretty big face pop. It's just,
how did Jerry do?
The Jerry was great. I mean, he came out and again, the crowd went nuts for him. I mean, he was one of the louder pops of the night just because when he came out, everybody recognized him. The music hit, nobody really knew. Then he stood out on the stage. People went nuts. Huge ECW chants. The whole building was chanting ECW. The match with Funaki was good. The little promo they did beforehand was pretty funny, too, about how he can't be Japanese, he lives in New Jersey, and there's no way he could be evil, pointing it to Jerry. And everybody liked that. The match was good. He had the kicks. People reacted to all of his kicks. He didn't do the tarantula, though, which I was surprised. He never did that spot. And I figured it's one of his main things, but for whatever reason they didn't do it. Crowd was into him. He was into it. And Dave Taylor, I don't know if anybody told you how much heat he got. Dave Taylor had
I did hear they got a lot of heat.
He had it was him and Scott Vick, and I don't know if it was just because the announcer was from England, because I doubt that many people remember him from WCW. I mean, he wasn't one of the more over guys there as it was, so it's not like one of those guys.
Not exactly.
I mean, yeah. So when he came out, I mean, he played to the crowd well. He basically did a lot of mat stuff. He worked Regal style against Vic, and Vic really didn't do much except like like a suplex and stuff. But people were in the Taylor. I mean, they booed the hell out of him early on in the dark matches, and crowd was into the show for metal for the most part. The S.A. Rios Low Key match, it wasn't. I mean, have you seen Low Key yet?
No, I still haven't seen Low Key.
If you watch it on metal, it's probably not, because he didn't really get to do much in that match. He did a couple of nice things, but like one of the spots he normally does, he missed. He didn't miss it like he messed up. I mean, S.A. Rios moved out of the way of this like flipping kick that he does into the corner, kind of like the Muda move, but he does this like backflip kick thing. It's really nice, but so it wouldn't be the best representation to see how good he is, because he is really good. I've seen other matches of his; he's really good. But it was kind of short. I was kind of disappointed with the match. But S.A. Rios was playing more of a charismatic kind of character. Like he kept swiveling his hips, like he was this Latino lover kind of thing, like a like a Latin lover kind of gimmick, actually, kind of that thing, and took off the pants and sort of was doing that gimmick. So, I mean, the crowd was a lot more into the show than all the reports I've been seeing. But I can understand how people that saw it on TV would take it that way. But I mean, they were into a lot of stuff. And then after the show, Foley was great. I don't know if you heard any of the after the Raw reports when the show went off the air. Foley. I'm sorry?
He talked about his book signings, right?
Oh, yeah. It was just funny. Like, he kept doing it, and Austin kept going. You know, it was like the heel thing where he would go to the ring, Foley would face him, he'd back off. And he kept yelling at him, if you want a piece of me, I'll be at Borders Books in Stony Brook from 7 to 9 this Friday. And then the crowd laughed, and then Austin would go at him and say something like, you know, what are you saying? You know, and Austin was sort of playing into it. He's like, oh, you just don't get it, do you? Borders Books, Stony Brook, 7 to 9. He repeated himself like 7 or 8 times in the crowd. It was great. And everybody loves that guy. I mean, you can't help it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the crowd was definitely a lot more into it than what I've been hearing. I mean, I saw some of the show on TV, and it looked pretty good on TV. It's just some of the matches were short, like the lightweight match. But they kind of, you know, they popped for certain moves during that match too. It was more like, I don't want to say Japanese crowd, don't take it that way, but it was that sort of thing where it was like quiet. There'd be a nice move and people reacted to it. So it wasn't just this totally dead crowd where they just didn't care about what was going on.
How about a Japanese crowd without this good spelling class?
That's true. Maybe that's part of the WWF fault.
Japanese crowd trying to write in English.
Well, WWF spells a lot of their character names the wrong way. You know, China, Rhino, Hardy Boys with a Z at the end. You know, I mean, what do you expect?
That's true. That's true. Maybe it's the influence.
They encourage it.
Yeah, they encourage it. It's WWF. Mushnick read a column on that or something. I don't know. That thing on the website, I don't know who wrote it. The Hogan Bischoff Jason Harvey conversation. That was really funny. I thought that was funny.
I'm glad you thought so, because we got a lot of negative feedback on that one too.
Did you really?
Oh,
I thought it was very funny personally.
I thought it was hysterical. I read the whole thing. I thought it was
great. The tanning stuff was just too funny for me. Sorry.
The tanning thing, I thought the way Jason Harvey was like, I got to go. My mom has to use the phone. We only have one line. That was great stuff. Whoever wrote that was a good job. I don't know. I like that a lot.
I thought it was pretty funny myself.
It was, yeah. Okay, that's about it. That's all I got.
Okay.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Let's see. What is this? Oh, this is a bunch of, somebody sent me all of these results from Madison Square Garden. I don't have any idea why.
Wow. Were we talking about Madison Square Garden earlier?
Let's see. It's Bruno Sammartino matches in Madison Square Garden and attendance figures. I don't know why I'm being sent this. Anyway.
But thanks.
Let me know why I already have them. I got the book. The History of Wrestling at the Garden. By the way, that's a hell of a book if those of you who are interested in like wrestling history. The History of Pro Wrestling at Madison Square Garden. It's just like a record book. It's just like all the matches that were held at the Garden through like 99 or 2000 from like 1880, and the attendance figures when available. It's like actually like a pretty damn good thing. Let's see. I don't know about you, but I haven't gotten through a Raw in the last 3 or 4 weeks without breaking down and crying. Now, I haven't cried. I haven't even come close. What was the highest rating of a Raw or a SmackDown? I think SmackDown probably peaked about a 5.4, and Raw, what was the record for Raw? Like 8.1, right?
A record for the entire 2 hours?
Yeah, the record rating for Raw was an 8.1. I remember it was against the NBA playoffs when there was no Nitro. And I think the record for a head-to-head was like a 7.1, which I think was, when Owen Hart died. Let's see. And there was another one. I think there was another 7.1 that was I don't know if that was opposed or unopposed. There were 2 7.1s. and an 8-1. Anyway, this is from Matt. I've had a weird week. Last night
7-2.
What?
May 24, 99 was a 7-2.
Oh, that's the day after Owen Hart died.
Okay. And there was a 7-1, July 26, 99.
Okay. So that's the other real big one.
Oops.
Yeah.
Oh, 7-4, May 1st, 2000.
Really? That was probably unopposed, right?
Probably.
Okay. This is from Matt, who goes, I had a weird week last week, and last night's Raw didn't help at all. Did anyone see what happened after the Lita-Molly match? Chyna bent over to help up Molly, and Lita skipped over and playfully tapped Chyna's ass. Then Chyna turned around to see what happened, started giggling like a little schoolgirl, while Lita seemed very happy. Did this freak anyone else out? Only about 15
Freak
people.
me out.
Did Andre the Giant ever have a shoot fight? Shoot fight. I guess the correct answer would be no, except in bars. But he had a very weird match with Akira Maeda in 1986 in Japan, where the match fell apart, and it was not a shoot, but it kind of, I mean, the match fell apart, and Akira Maeda, took Andre the Giant down, 40 times in a row, and Andre the Giant was about to have a heart attack lying on his back. I mean, the one thing about Andre was he had no balance at all. I mean, he was big and scary, but every time Maeda would go for the leg, Andre would tip over like a 3-legged table. He'd go for the leg, and Andre would just fall down. And yeah,
go ahead.
Anyway, so Andre just kept falling down, and Maeda kept looking to, the guys at New Japan, going he wants to fight me. Now that he's down, can I kick him in the head? And they kept shaking their head, no, you can't kick him in the head. So this went on for a while, and Andre's on the ground daring him to come down and fight me. While he's lying on his back, come down and fight me. Because he was too tired to keep getting up, because he was really overweight at this point. So it was kind of the stalemate, and finally Inoki came into the ring and just goes, okay, this is just an absolute disaster. And it ended just like that. And and then Akira Maeda threw this kick at the guardrail. It was the hardest kick he's probably ever thrown in his whole life. He was so mad because I guess it was the one he was waiting to throw on Andre. Oh, no, the one thing I should also mention this, before Maeda did all those takedowns, they were standing there, and they were, really ready to fight, and Maeda just started kicking him right in the kneecap. And Andre couldn't block any kicks, obviously, because it was too slow reflexes. And he kept trying to grab Maeda. Maeda would come in, throw a kick to the knee, and then back off while Andre would lunge 10 seconds too late, right? I mean, he made him look really, really bad, although Andre's, so huge that if he ever, grabbed him, yeah, even if he grabbed him, he got tired. He'd have been done. Well, he looked it looked when you're watching it like Maeda's going to be done for as soon as he grabs him, but he never came close. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So he just kept kicking him in the knee, and the knee's all bright red. And then at that point, Andre couldn't stand on the knee. There were a couple of takedowns. Andre would get up, get his knees kicked. Then finally, he just didn't want to get up anymore because his knee hurt so bad, and he just laid there, and Maeda just stood there going okay, now what do I do now? And it just kind of ended. But I mean, I remember after that happened, there were some people who were on that tour. This was before I saw the tape of it, and they go and these were people who thought that the Choshu Maeda thing was which happened the next year. They thought that was a total work, even though it wasn't. But but I remember after that thing, they were going Maeda would have ended Andre's career if one of those guys at ringside would have shook his head. They said he would have just taken his, he'd have kicked him in the knee so many times and kicked him in the head and all that. And then, so that pretty much to me spelled the end of the myth of Andre as the toughest man in the world, but it didn't didn't dispel the myth to anybody else who didn't see that tape. Mm-hmm. Anyway, how do you think Triple H would fare in a real fight with Benoit or Angle? I have no idea.
Who knows?
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, just as a guess,
I would put my smart money on Angle, but again, who knows?
Well, I think Angle's a pretty safe bet. Benoit, I have no clue, but Angle. I mean, Angle can take you down so quick, especially a guy who's never wrestled. That the odds of him not doing so are pretty minuscule. Especially unless you're a world-class wrestler, you're not going to stop his takedown. So. And of course, it depends on conditioning and a lot of things, but, I mean, Angle would seem like a pretty safe bet. This is from Josh, who goes, here's a funny sign we saw at King of the Ring last year. If you smell, spelled S-M-E-E-L, Smeal, like something. If you smell what The Rock is cooing, cooking is spelled C-O-O-I-N. Yeah, I think that they should definitely have that sign like at the front of every building when they have a TV taping. Please, we are losing sponsors very quickly because they think they've read that Gallup poll, and we have got to change our image. You know that Bryan, that they're doing like a big thing. I think it's tomorrow. The big advertising thing at WF New York where they're trying to sell upfront ads for SmackDown and Manhunt, and not the XFL, by the way.
It's going to be an interesting day.
It is going to be interesting, but one of the things that they're doing is they're going to have a presentation to explain that the image that people have, like this is for advertisers, the image that you have of our fan base, maybe not being as intelligent as you are, is in fact false. So one of the reasons I think they need to, like, when they show clips of all those fans having fun, I bet you that they do not show any of those signs in that presentation tomorrow.
You think so?
I got that feeling. Let's go to Alan. Alan, what's going on?
Hey, how you guys doing again?
Doing great.
All right. I have a question. With Rikishi turning good again, what is that going to leave? You think Haku? Do you think they maybe might feud with each other? Maybe Haku will join with McMahon, or?
Oh God, I think that Haku's just
Haku and McMahon.
Yeah. I tell you the truth, I don't really care for Haku. I never thought he was that great to begin with, but.
Those would be some compelling 20-minute opening segments.
Haku, go pull this guy's eye out. No one will get it.
How'd you like that last night where Vince is coming down the aisle with Regal, all dressed up in his suit, looking like he's going to go kill somebody? I thought that was great.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Do you remember, I was just reading on the news board, you probably remember him, Dave, the manager in Florida, Sir Oliver Humperdinck?
Oh, yeah, of course.
I was reading on,
yeah, he had heart surgery about a week or 10 days ago.
Yeah, they're having a benefit for him or some type of thing for him in Florida, Key West. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, in Key West on the 16th, I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some guys like Bam Bam Bigelow and Hugh Morris and some other guys are going to be there.
Yeah, the guys who live in the area and some of his friends are going to be there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, what's going on with Eddie Guerrero? Are they planning on turning? You think they're going to turn him face again, or?
I figure that they're doing something where he's going to try to steal Lita from Matt.
Oh, I see. But you think he's going to stay face, or you think he's?
I think that kind of would make him a heel.
He can't be a heel and steal Lita because she's a babyface.
Yeah, but he seems weird.
No, but it's like that Kurt Angle thing. Kurt Angle. I don't know.
Well, if he actually gets her, he'll have to be babyface, and Matt will have to turn heel.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's true. That's possible.
Isn't I think Matt's taking on Eddie Guerrero at the pay-per-view?
Okay, but no, seriously now. If Lita goes with him, then she's an idiot because I saw on TV he was sleeping with 2 prostitutes. Or no, he was not. He was in the shower with. He was in a shower, and it was on TV. This is not like it's some hidden thing that's a rumor. We saw it. And, he was engaged to China while this is going on. So this is not, plus, you know what? Plus he's also married and has kids himself. So therefore, I don't know about this thing with Lita. I think Lita needs, Lita dumped Malenko, and Malenko doesn't have anywhere near that kind of,
well, if you do it that way, then you have to look that both Matt and Lita have said in public that they are not together, yet they're together on TV.
That's true, too.
True. I knew. Did you know Lita was I'm from Florida. Lita's from Florida.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I read that she's from Fort Lauderdale or something. She went to high school down where I'm from.
I didn't know that.
Kind of like where Gangrel. He's from down here too.
Yeah, well, I knew he was. Yeah, him and Tom Nash both started out together in South Florida.
Do you go, Dave? Do you go to independent shows that much, or like in California?
Not a ton. But I go every now and then.
Because I haven't been for a while, but there's a show down here that we have this Saturday. I don't know if you heard of them. There's a group called FOW, Future Wrestling.
Oh, yeah, of course. I heard of them.
They're having a show with Jerry Lawler on the show.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that because he's been publicizing it. It's the show he says that, he claims that the guys who are on the show have all been told that if they work the show that they'll never ever get to the WWF or something.
Yeah, I've never been to any of their shows. I know one of the guys that runs the group. I don't know. I just never bothered to go, but it might be interesting to go. I think they're going to have Bill Alfonso on their show, and they do sometimes bring in wrestlers, some name talent. But do you think running an independent promotion doesn't mean you're going to draw a great crowd just having some old time name or name talent from the past?
It doesn't work around here.
It depends on how well you promote it. It really depends.
True. All right, that's all I have to talk about for today. Keep up the good work, guys.
Okay, thanks. Let's go to James in Kentucky. James, what's up?
Hey, how y'all doing?
Hey.
Dynamite Dave.
Yes.
James, how come I don't have a nickname yet?
I'm thinking of one for you.
Okay.
I'll get back with you on that. And I just want to say that I watched Raw last night, and other Raws I watched. I'm a fan of longer matches.
Well, you're not going to be happy a lot.
I know, but 7-8 minutes match, okay too.
Well, we got Austin's match went 7 minutes.
Yeah,
that was the
and
only
plus
one.
Jericho and them. And
Jericho. That's right. They went like 10 minutes. Yeah.
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 And that was my two favorite matches, and that I think if they kept the wrestlers in there for that light heavyweight title match, like another 7 minutes or so, that would have been a great match. It went.
I don't think that particular crowd would have gone for that.
Yeah.
It's like I blinked and it was over.
That happens a lot.
Yeah, and I would like to say that if the WWF would quit, who cares about what every once in a while? Every once in a while, what goes on in the back, people's interested. But the Dynasty, Dallas, Notch Landing era is over, and people's just not interested. Like me, I got old tapes. If I want to watch a Dynasty in Dallas, people.
I think Dave has those old tapes too.
What now?
Do you have those old Dallas tapes, Dave?
Yeah.
No, I have none of them.
J.R. Ewing? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember J.R. Ewing.
Are you talking about the soap opera, the WWF? Is that what you're comparing it to?
Yes. Soap opera.
Okay.
See, I'm watched when you were a kid.
I'm a fan of the 80s also, when they just had matches.
I was a big fan in the 80s too, but that was in the 80s. I was a big fan
of the
80s.
I like the 80s music, by the way, too. Okay.
Yeah.
What? I don't mind it, but I don't want to be like re-releasing it either.
Okay, Dave, what you were saying that they was going to put Benoit and Jericho against the Christian and Edge?
Yes.
You think pretty soon? I believe that'll happen at tonight's taping or whenever it is of SmackDown.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a good match coming up for the next pay-per-view, Benoit versus Kurt Angle in a ladder match with the medals on.
We've had so many we've had so many ladder matches. We had Benoit and Jericho in a ladder match this year. Then we had the tables, ladders, and chairs at WrestleMania. It's like, it's going to be like the cage where you do it so much that you've killed it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So I really think
I really just don't want to see. I don't think those guys could. I don't know if I want to say I don't think they could have a good ladder match together, but just looking at those two, you don't think. Well, I guess Benoit maybe, but not Angle. You just don't think ladder match. What's Angle going to do in a ladder match?
Well, he'll try to do anything he can to get them medals back. You know what I mean?
I guess so.
Yeah, they got to do something with those medals.
Yeah.
Maybe medals on a pole.
How about the winner? The winner is the guy who tears off the loser's pants.
Oh.
I don't want to see that either. Yes.
Yeah, Dave. I just wanted to tell you
when they do that one, then we know they're really in trouble.
I'm a dedicated wrestling fan.
Uh-huh.
You know how long I've been on the phone waiting to get on the air? I've been on here a whole hour.
Wow.
That's how dedicated I am.
Cool.
And tomorrow, Bobby Heenan's going to be on, right?
Yes, he is.
That's right.
And it's not like one-time thing. I could call back in tomorrow and talk to Bobby.
You can call to talk to Bobby Heenan. Yes, you can. In fact, I encourage you to do so.
Okay. And also, I would like to say that would be deemed the meeting of the minds.
What did you say?
What was that?
I missed that.
The meeting of the minds.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We got to run to a break right now.
Thank you.
This is from Gary. He says, WWF should forget about starting up WCW. WWF sucks right now, and their staff should not be any more overworked. They need to get WWF back on track. No one's going to watch WCW at 11 p.m. because nobody cared about that company in prime time. The WWF will lose money on WCW, and it will be another McMahon failure by the end of the year. WWF should cut their losses early with WCW and end the company before they even started. All the WCW wrestlers under contract are B-level guys or worse, and they should be content working indies. Actually, to me,
this is not going to be the same WCW.
No, and the other thing is that I think that correctly done, a WWF versus WCW feud done right will revitalize the business. Now, if WCW dies, it could be the death knell of the business, or not, I don't say death knell, that's too strong, but it could be a real.
WCW dies and they do XFL a second season. That could be a death knell right there.
Yeah. This is from John in Kelowna, BC, who says, in a recent article of our city's newspaper, a columnist spent an entire page ragging on wrestling. Here are some of his quotes. It's not the blatant sex nor sexism that's the problem. It's not even the violence per se. It's that the cable and pay wrestling phenomenon is part of the reason kids take guns to school and shoot other kids. I'd like to see that in context, because I don't really like that quote at all. I mean, it's like... So, Goldberg has a nasty scar on his forehead that was acquired when Scott Hall smashed his head into some metal stairs. It being his head, Goldberg was not seriously injured. Well, that's just meant for comedy. Football fans aren't like wrestling fans. Football fans aren't anything like wrestling fans. Football fans have a brain.
Oh,
God,
yeah.
That is pretty insulting. I take that one real insulting. Anyway, ladies, when you see your husband lying on the couch this fall with a real football game on the tube, you can say to yourself, I always knew that I married a real intellectual, relatively speaking. I intend to write back to this guy, but I want to do it in a civilized manner. Do you and Bryan have any ideas which arguments I can use? You cannot use any arguments because this guy is way so far gone that he has no idea.
Yeah, don't
No arguments. No arguments are even going to work when a guy's that far gone. Let's see. In his new book, Mick Foley says that the Iron Sheik was a former Olympian. The lies will never end. There's no use trying to stop them. Yeah, no, that's like one of those things.
Once the story gets out, everybody goes to every other source of information that says it and just reprints it.
Yeah, I mean, it was like there'll be like news stories that come out like every day. It's like this guy starting a new company or that guy starting a new company, and they've got this TV deal, and then you call them up, and it's like they haven't even had the meeting to begin with to like get the funding. And they haven't even approached a television station, but it's already out there on the internet. And you say no, and then people just go, "Oh, you're behind on the story." In fact, actually, I joke with Bryan about that about once every week or two. I send him emails and go, "Bryan, we missed this story too. What are we doing? We're always behind on the story."
So behind.
Yeah, I know. Let's see.
It's just like The Mummy Returns, The movie made, it was like $70.1 million or whatever. And as soon as that story got out on the AP, you know that every magazine, every newspaper, every local newspaper took everything from that AP article. And if somebody had been asleep at the wheel of the AP and had put 70.1 million instead of 60.1 million, every single newspaper in the country would still have put 70.1. Nobody would have even bothered to research.
Bryan, do you know what the story is on that one? You don't even know. That's a fake number. Did you know that?
The 70.1 million?
Yeah. That number was done, that 70.1 million number was done on Sunday morning. It already came out.
That's where I got the article. Was Sunday morning, and I was going, how do they have Sunday's box office figures on Sunday morning?
How can they have Sunday's box office on Sunday morning? It was the estimate of what they expected on Sunday. It was only an estimated number. That wasn't even a real number.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, it's probably not that far off what they probably, but I'm just saying... Yeah, it's probably real close, but I mean, it's like they have this number, including Sunday.
Well, really, how do you get a number at the end of the weekend anyway for all these, movie theaters across the nation? It's got to all be an estimate.
It's got to be. It's right. It's got to be. But it's probably not far off, and I'm sure it really did set those records. It's like TV ratings. But I mean, So anyway, this guy is. I will give Mushnick credit. He hasn't said anything stupid for a while, but his UFC article. It wasn't an article. It was like 2 sentences. He pretty much spit right in your face. He didn't spit in my face. He just didn't call me and said something stupid. That's not spitting in my face. That's totally different. You're one of the few writers out there that give the sport a good name, and then this jackass in a big publication like the Post goes off on a subject he knows nothing about and gives MMA a bad name. Okay, let's see. I'm just wondering where the Honky Tonk Man's website is. What is it? Is it HTM? I'm not sure. There's a lot of controversy.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I don't think it's honkytonkman.com. Somebody can let us know.
Do you remember when Cyclone Negro was on the show Lie Detector and was caught lying, saying that he never wrestled in a match that was predetermined? Wasn't that Lou Albano?
I think that was Lou Albano.
I don't think that was Cyclone Negro. When Russo
maybe he did too.
Yeah. When Russo
they both would have failed.
Yeah. When Russo insulted, I think he may have done that too. I seem to remember that maybe there was probably 2 different shows, huh? Anyway. Yeah. When Russo insulted Hulk Hogan at Bash at the Beach, was that a shoot? I think he meant everything he said, if that's what you mean. He had not agreed to, I think
that promo was not a planned promo. How about that?
Oh, it was planned by him. I think it wasn't, I think that Hulk Hogan did not know about that promo ahead of time. Now, everything else that happened on that show, they had all agreed on. And maybe they agreed on that too.
I mean, that was a real lawsuit, and that was the basis of the lawsuit, so I would guess that Hogan didn't know.
Yeah. Do you think the ratings decline can be attributed to Rock's absence? Partially, sure. Yeah, I think that's part of the reason.
Rock's absence, Austin's turn.
Austin's turn, not following up on the WCW. The TV's gotten worse. They're all factors. What was the buy rate for Backlash? Too early. They don't have any information in demand yet. Was the incident on 2020 in the early 80s between David Schultz and John Stossel real? Very much so.
It was damn real.
Yeah, that was scary real. Whatever became of David Schultz, he was a bounty hunter for years, and I don't know what he's doing now. Donnie Leibel saw him not too long ago at his daughter's wedding, and I think he's driving a truck now. I'm pretty sure that's what he's doing. Let's go to Herb in Houston. Herb, what's happening? Herb. Hey, Charles, what's up?
Hey, Dave. Hey, Bryan. How you guys doing today?
Hey.
We're doing good.
Very good, very good. First, let me start off by saying both of you guys did excellent jobs on the Johnny Valentine obituaries. They were very well done. I enjoyed both of them very much. Bryan, in addition to having a singular wit, he has a real gift for getting a lot of information into a small amount of space.
That's just because the computer crunches things good. That's not... I can do that too with the same computer program. No, you know what? I gotta get Bryan.
Not just physically a small amount of space, but with few words.
You know what I want to compliment you on, Bryan, though, is like on the Valentine thing. What I was impressed with is you did a hell of a job on that, and you never saw him. Like I didn't see a lot of Johnny Valentine because it was kind of. It was my childhood, but I did see him, and I can visualize what he did and everything. But you're really going. You did a good. You did a good job basically from people's stories. I know you didn't grow up watching him, which I saw
a little bit, but not very much. In fact, I think it was like two matches.
I saw he and Wahoo live, and you did excellent. I saw them tear the place down. And
thanks.
Both jobs were very well, though.
Dave's did crush mine, though, I must say. Crush mine.
Well, Dave gives you that whole journalistic thing, though. Yours are almost like the Reader's Digest version, but they're excellent, whereas Dave's is the huge editorial. Mm-hmm. But both products are very good. What I wanted to talk about, I guess, briefly was, and I don't know if you guys even want to revisit this or not, but in the past week or so...
Montreal?
No,
That's
never
okay.
Montreal.
We can talk about that one forever, because we will.
In the past week or so, I was looking at the website, and I was reading a lot of the comments and criticisms of Hunter, and let me start by saying I agree with Bryan 100%, but I have also noticed that Hunter, obviously, by some of his mannerisms in the ring, he obviously does study a lot of Ric Flair tape, and
especially when he's doing long matches, you can tell he's just watched a bunch of Flair matches. Whenever he has a long match, you see a lot of the Flair stuff in there, and Harley Race too. That's
exactly. Well, Flair and Harley, they did a lot of the same things too. That little knee thing that they both do, they did some of the same stuff. What I'd like to say is this. I don't know if any of those guys listen to the show or not, but if I could ever have a conversation with the guy, I would love to say, don't just look at Flair's matches, but look at his psychology. I think the one thing that Ric Flair was the master of was if he was in a feud or doing a program with a guy that obviously was not his match, Flair could make you believe and suspend your disbelief that any guy, if you get him mad enough, is dangerous to you. It doesn't mean that they're on your level, but they're dangerous.
Like Medusa. Like Medusa.
Yeah.
That was going too far.
In a lot of ways I think wrestles more like Flair than Hunter? It's Kurt Angle.
Absolutely, because he's a bumping machine.
Kurt Angle, the babyface will just be absolutely pummeling him. And he'll cut him off, and then almost immediately, it'll be another switch, and the babyface will just be beating on him. It's totally Ric Flair.
The one thing about Kurt Angle, though, where I think that he actually... he'll never be better than Flair in that he'll never have the opportunity to work the long matches, and I don't know that he'll even be as good as Flair on interviews, even though he's great on interviews himself. But the one thing about him is that his offense is much better than Flair's.
Yeah.
I would love Kurt Angle. Like when he makes his comeback, his moves are so smooth. Like the suplexes and every bit of offense he does looks great. Flair's offense was a lot more limited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a naturally gifted guy. Obviously, he's a naturally gifted guy, especially if he was able to wrestle in the Olympics. In analyzing Flair, I noticed, two different things. One thing is with the guys that you're going to actually elevate, like your Steamboats and your Stings, that he can make you believe that those guys were actually his equal or at times his better. But even when Flair had feuds with guys like Ricky Morton or Ron Garvin, there would be enough psychology thrown in there to make you believe that those guys could actually at least get one win off of Flair. And I think that was entertaining. You didn't believe that they were better than him, but you believed that in the situation they could get a win. And I think that's something, if Hunter could just incorporate that into his package, that would make things a lot easier. He wouldn't get as much heat for maybe not doing as many jobs.
He could. It's just he's got a different psychology, though, which is protecting his spot. I think one of the reasons Flair always did that was because Flair, even though Flair is at times insecure, I think Flair was secure enough to know that he was such a good interview and such a superior talent that certainly in the 80s, maybe not so much in the 90s when bookers were trying to bury him, but in the 80s, it was one of those things where, I'm really so much better than everyone else in this business that I got a lot to give. And like all I got to do is I can put this guy over for 40 straight minutes, and if you give me 5 minutes of interviews next Saturday, everyone will I'll get myself right back over. Yeah. And Flair had that confidence to do it, whereas with Hunter, it's so
Hunter's in a company with Angles and some Benoits and some really good guys.
Yeah, and I just sense that he's Hunter's more out there to protect his spot, which anyone would do. I think if you put Flair in the position in the WWF now, he may. I mean, I think he would still do all the selling and everything, but I think politically behind the scenes he would probably be more manipulative than he had to be. Yeah. In the ring though, he would sell and make guys, because that would be the one thing that he would tell Vince McMahon and everything. It's like put me in there with Rikishi, I'll make Rikishi into a main eventer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like nobody else can, and that would be Flair's calling card on why he would always keep his spot.
Yeah. Boy, you make an interesting point. I don't know. To me, when it comes to who should be elevated next, I don't know if you guys agree or not, but it probably should be, the management decision. It should be McMahon's decision, or, McMahon and Ross together. And all of the help should go with the decision.
Well, it will. It's just that they just, I think the one that, their chosen one's going to end up being Rikishi or Bradshaw or something. I just get this feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, only the big guys, huh?
No, I don't know. I mean, I don't know where, Angle's cooled off. Benoit.
Which is so sad because, every now and then I'll watch that tape again, the Kurt Angle video. That's so awesome. I mean, every time I just watch that, and then I watch some of the stuff that they do with him now, and it's like, this guy is so utterly wasted here.
Well, I think the two guys that McMahon has that I think that are diamonds in the rough are Angle and Benoit, because I think even though McMahon, yes, he is the big man and he only really relates to bigger people, I respect him enough and view him as being smart enough to be able to recognize when he has something unique in those two guys, because they're two guys that are not big, but they work big, though. And they look good. I mean, that really can get an audience behind you. When you have a little guy like that can work big, and he looks believable against anybody you put him in the ring against, that's a hell of a gimmick.
Well, the thing with Benoit is that Benoit really is only going to get over in the ring. And when they do stuff out of the ring, it hurts him, unfortunately. He's just, but he can get over in the ring because he was getting over in the ring last year, and now that he's doing a lot of stuff out of the ring, it's cooling him off. Angle, obviously, is a lot more versatile. But Angle, the thing that kills Angle is that he's a geek. And people will never get behind a geek in a main event because a geek doesn't scare you. And you certainly will never get behind a geek and want to make him a babyface. He has got to play. He was great getting over in that role, but he's got to do a totally different role to be a top guy. And I was watching that TV last night, and that old Kurt Angle thing, which was great a year ago, they got to switch gears with him. They did for a couple of weeks, and they dropped it. And ever since they dropped the switching gears, when he stopped putting Rock in the ankle lock and looking like he could, he's the one guy who could beat Rock anytime he wanted, and they went back to the geek mid-card Kurt Angle, he lost a lot of steam.
You know what? I thought they really had something when every time he would cut the geek interviews, at the end of the interview, when everybody else clears the room, you see him do that sly smile like, I'm working everybody. I thought they were really onto something with that. That eventually that character was going to, metamorph into something bigger, into this, this great mastermind, and eventually end up with Stephanie or something.
That's where it all went downhill from, was that point. There it is, right there.
The other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about was, and I know this is kind of older news too, but just thinking about the thing with Vince McMahon and Bob Costas and the problems that they were already having, with sponsors and, questioning the content of the programming. I have thought about this thing and thought about it, and I have, whether you like Vince McMahon or hate him, I've come to respect him as at least being a smart businessman and a great promoter. But for the life of me, I just can't imagine what was on his mind going into character in that situation. I thought he was smarter than that.
I think he thought that he was going to do something that all his fans were going to rally behind and rail. He tried, he couldn't or wouldn't or whatever it was, he couldn't get a thing with Mushnick, which obviously was what he wanted. So he tried to turn Costas into Mushnick, so he was standing up to Mushnick, and is that obsession with Mushnick, and the obsession does go both ways, the first thing he did was, bring up Mushnick's name 3 or 4 times, and then just go like, I'm standing up to Mushnick. The only thing is, it was Bob Costas, who's a lot quicker-witted than Mushnick, and who, made Vince
a better on-screen presence.
Better on-screen presence, and made Vince look so bad when he went into character. And while Vince's hardcore audience loved him for standing up for us wrestling fans, anyone would think about it, and then this is where I come in. Washington's going like, yeah, you're standing up for us wrestling fans against Bob Costas, who's been a wrestling fan for 30 years. It's like, what are you doing? It's like you're trying to make this guy, like, he's one of those wrestling haters, and it's like, I've known Bob Costas forever. He's been a wrestling fan up until, the Gulf War, and he still likes, a lot of aspects of wrestling. He just doesn't like some of those aspects, which, quite frankly, he's got every right not to like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that was a huge blunder that's going to come back to bite him in the behind. And
it already has.
I think there's a lot of things that are going to, or have come back to bite Vince.
Well, a lot, the whole, everything he said before that XFL season's bit him really bad. I'll tell you what, Bryan, if you get that tape of Raw, I know you never do this because you watch Raw on tape, but fast forward only the commercials and watch the commercials. It's really scary. You don't have a lot. The commercials on Raw. Just watch the content of the commercials on Raw. It's not, you're not getting those big companies anymore, and you're getting, God, all those We Want Pop, and those things are so horrible. The commercial content, ever since they switched from USA, the commercial content of that show has just gone to the toilet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just 2 more points. I wonder, did McMahon realize that the reason that people kind of chose his side over Mushnick is because nobody really looked at the facts. They just looked at which guy came off as being more rational.
That is the reason.
That's the whole thing right there.
I think that's what he was thinking then, is that they didn't look at the facts before, so they won't this time. The funny thing is like Bryan and I have talked about this before. Mushnick has written some awesome columns on wrestling, and the reaction to his good columns and his bad columns is exactly the same from wrestling
exactly
fans.
The same. People don't read the actual column.
They don't read what he says.
Remember that when Vince was on Howard Stern and Mushnick called in?
It wasn't Howard Stern. It was Mike and Mad Dog.
Mad Dog. Yeah. If that had been anybody else, I can almost say, I was going to say just Bob Costas, but almost anybody else. But let's just say Costas. If that had been Costas calling in with the exact same points, he would have murdered Vince McMahon.
Oh, if it wasn't for Mushnick's delivery, if you looked at that thing, I remember listening
just
to
read
it.
Just read it point by point or read a transcript?
If you read it point by point in a transcript, he did murder Vince McMahon, but if you listen to it, there's no way you would come to that conclusion because Mushnick was just so... it was like this guy who'd waited like 10 years to do this, and he just was like, yeah, exactly. He couldn't control himself, and actually he was exactly like Vince on Costas.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, what I wanted to say, guys, was, you guys you've done some really good stuff, and whether you like Dave Meltzer and Bryan Alvarez, agree with them or not, you guys have always been ahead of the curve in the cyclical business as far as spotting bad business trends. And I really hope, for the sake of wrestling fans, that the WWF is reading some of the stuff you guys are saying, because they're reading.
You know what scares me? They are reading. Don't get me wrong. They are reading it. And WWF reads what I write, obviously. There's many people who subscribe to the Observer in that office, and some of it take it the right way. But I sense, and again, maybe this is just from the website and everything, that they're getting in that WCW defensive mode, in which case you react to the criticism by trying to show that the criticism is wrong, and that's when you really get into trouble. That's where and that's what scared me, was when I've read some of the stuff or seen some of the comments, that instead of looking at it and going like, people are crying for new guys in the top, instead of going like, well, we'll show you, you know what I mean? And it's like, when they start that we'll show you stuff, I've seen that with every wrestling company when they get in that thing, and when the ego gets there, and they'll be doomed if they do it that way. If they don't just go and like These are people who are trying to help us, give us advice. These are not people who are getting their jollies from watching the product suffer.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I really hope, for the sake of all the wrestling fans, and even for the sake of the company, that their business acumen will eventually outweigh their ego. Otherwise, man, there's some bad trends out there, and they're falling right into those traps. Lastly, Dave, FMLL over the weekend. I didn't attend. I had some other family matters I had to take care of, but I understand it was a free show, and I understand that there was possibly 10,000 people out there.
Really?
Yeah, the main event.
Who'd you have? You had Santo there, right?
Yeah, Santo, Durango, and Chilango against Poison, Vision, and Mysterioso. Carlos is going to call you up with full details of everything.
Okay, awesome. Was that in El Monte, or what city was that in?
Yeah, I think El Monte.
Okay, cool.
Okay, guys, thank you very much for your time.
Goes, I'm sure you've answered this question, which in fact we have. What was your reaction to what went down at the beginning of the World War III pay-per-view in 1995 when Hogan burned a copy of The Observer? I was laughing in disbelief. I mean, in total disbelief. I was going like, I can't believe it. I laughed a lot more when Brian Pillman called me up after the show and just goes, was that the stupidest thing that they ever did? I mean, if you actually watch that beginning segment and then watch that show, it was almost like it was surreal. I mean, I almost felt like I was having this out-of-body experience that, like, this
or
man
a dream. A dream
like
that would never happen.
A dream of something. How could this happen? Yeah. If Chris Jericho's match had the highest rating last night, will Vince be more swayed to push him despite backstage politics? I would say no.
Nope, it was Regal that drew that rating.
This is actually quite cute. Triple H wasn't on the show last night because he was in the control room messing around with the audience noise levels. That is so funny. Let's see. The person probably sent you those Madison Square Garden results to show that there was actually wrestling at the Garden before Hogan. Let me see if there's anything else in here. Let me say this really quick because we've actually gotten so many emails on this. Kurt Hennig is not gay, okay? Just want to clear that up. Let's see. This is from John, who goes, I'm not optimistic about the future of the wrestling business. It seems like the business is regressing and not evolving. The business gets no mainstream respect because its storylines are booked for simple-minded people. Wrestling can be such a strong art form when it combines the elements of sport, comedy, and drama, but instead we're force-fed, lowbrow, and nonsensical storylines. I watched Raw last night with some non-wrestling fans, and they thought that wrestling was the stupidest thing they'd ever seen on television. Imagine if they actually watched it every week and tried to follow the storylines. The Rikishi turn made no sense whatsoever on every level. It's funny that this is the only entertainment form that I follow, and I'm half the time embarrassed to be a fan. I still have shame in telling people I like wrestling. As long as the storylines continue to insult the intelligence of the fans, this business will have a negative stigma. Somebody wrote something here. Let me see what it is. I was like, someone was going like, are you sure the WWF really won the war? They survived the war. They won, and then they just kind of survived. Anyway, let's go to Greg. Greg, what's going on?
I'm on the air?
Yes. You're on the air, buddy.
All right, I got a question. Isn't it weird that how we're talking about how if you mention Goldberg's name on WWF, like everyone will expect it, right? Well, isn't it funny that when Raw ends, the first thing we see, or at least in my area, we see the Goldberg monster truck. That's kind of weird. I mean, I'm getting.
You think Vince is subliminally like booking the monster truck show too? God, think of all the money that those monster truck guys have with these characters that aren't even on TV anymore, like Sting and Goldberg.
What's going on with those?
I don't know, but Goldberg had a kick-ass monster truck. I remember that.
I know, it's just weird. I mean, another note from the show, like, do you have any, like, crazy stories about fans running into the ring or throwing crap in the ring or, like, anything weird? Like, you've been watching wrestling for a while, so I assume you
do you watch that monster truck show on TNN after Raw?
I didn't watch it. I mean,
you didn't watch it?
I saw Goldberg's truck.
Nobody does.
It's pretty funny.
Have they ever had a battle on Cobo Hall?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I was wondering, like, after seeing the fans jump in the ring at Raw, I was wondering, like, do you have any, like, funny stories about, like, fans running into the ring or throwing crap at, like, wrestlers or anything like that? I mean, like, you've been watching wrestling for a while.
I will tell a very brief story that actually isn't very funny, but many years ago I went to this show with my friend Brent Kremen, and he did not like Sid because Sid stabbed Arn Anderson. And he
actually a good reason compared to most reasons.
Well, yes. He took a full bottle of pop and he threw it at Sid, hit him right in the head, and got ejected. And about 3 months later, I was talking to my friend Craig, who absolutely did not know Brent Kremen from anybody, And he said, Bryan, last time I went to a show, this total freak threw a pop at Sid and hit him right in the head, and he got ejected. And I had to go, that was my friend Brant. So it is a very small Tacoma Dome. But that's my story about jumping the rail. And ever since then, whenever I see someone jump the rail, I think it's Brent Kremen.
I mean, as far as I don't know. I don't know like any specific stories as far as
How about the guy that hit the ring and Brian Hildebrand took him down in a front face lock?
That was pretty funny. How about remember that show? It was in Charlotte, and they had just done all these angles like week after week of guys hitting the ring. Remember? And then when Charlotte, like 6 people hit the ring in one show on a night show.
Oh, yeah, it was because the night before they did the pay-per-view, and it was like Hogan. It was Hogan and Piper in that 10,000-foot cage, and Savage came off the top, and a fan hit the ring during that match. And the next night, like 6 real fans hit the ring, and it was a plant at the pay-per-view.
They tried to do that plant, and it's so funny because it's like I'm just thinking this is like, and this was when they were doing well. This is the mentality of that company, and they're going like, what we're going to do is we're going to plant and have a fan hit the ring and like show close-ups and Randy Savage throwing worked punches and not even hurting the guy. So then then they go to Charlotte.
No, I think their idea was we'll have a plant hit the ring and get beat up by a wrestler to encourage fans not to hit the ring. When in reality, what it did was encourage even more fans to hit the ring.
Exactly.
Because they glorified it.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny that Vince acknowledged it last night? I mean, even though he pretty much had to because the fan was like right there on TV.
Well, the guy was praising him.
Yeah, really. I mean,
he had no reason to get rid of him.
It was weird because usually for WWF you just switch camera shots because that happens a lot more than you think on those shows, but you don't see it because they don't show it.
It's funny because there hasn't been one house show or a show I've gone to where a fan hasn't jumped in the ring or thrown something at a wrestler. Like I remember when DDP first won the belt, a fan threw like a full can of soda. A guy right next to me, right at DDP's head, and it hit him right in the face. Even though I don't think it was on live TV, it's weird. I always expect that to happen now.
The thing is, I don't encourage glorifying fans hitting the ring. But last night, Foley came out in his hometown. It was so over at the beginning of that segment, and then Vince and Regal and everybody came down to spoil the fun. And a fan hit the ring, and it was like, that's almost perfect. Except you could hear the guy praising Vince.
The other thing about fans throwing things. This is the one that when WCW used to encourage fans to throw things. They wanted people to do that, and I thought this is so bad because if you've ever sat in the front row of wrestling, which I have done many, many times, and people are throwing things, 8 times out of 10 it's going to hit someone in the front row, and what if it hits like a little kid,
Yeah.
I mean, I had so many things thrown, at, like Chris Jericho or whoever that, falls 2 rows short, hits you in the back. It's like this. It totally sucks.
Well, I hate when drunk, I mean, not like that's an excuse for doing it, but,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I just thought it'd be a fun thing to bring up. Listen, you guys, your show is totally great, and this is my first time calling in. Love the show. Keep up the good work.
Okay, thanks. We're going to go to Scott. Scott, what's up?
Mike.
Hi,
what's
how you guys doing?
Hey.
I can't believe that what's going on with the WWF now. I mean, I just remember back in 1998, Kevin Kelly cut some kind of promo. It was on some show where he said, well, back in 1995, Vince had all these yes men. Nobody would tell him Bastion Booger was a bad idea and things like that. And it just seems to be the same old thing right now.
I told him Bastion Booger and Friar Ferguson were bad ideas.
Oh, apparently
not personally.
Nobody has
I
mentioned
wrote
that
it,
about Rikishi main eventing. So
yeah.
either he's got a bunch of yes men or the stupidest 20-year-olds writing in this century.
I saw that last night with the Lita China thing.
Oh my God.
Well, here's the deal, okay, on part of it, okay? When you look at, the head writer, Stephanie, she's been in wrestling her whole life, so she's pretty smart. And Paul Heyman is pretty smart when it comes to wrestling. In fact, really, really smart. But the other guys are television writers that really don't have wrestling savvy, and I mean, are they going to understand that Rikishi, the fat man that's dancing, is probably not as good of a choice to put on TV in that role as, say, a Chris Benoit, who's just this guy in pants that has a really good physique that they really can't figure out how to script. You know what I mean?
Well,
yeah. So I mean, you got to realize who's they're not people who have a background of studying the wrestling industry, and that's part of the problem.
Well, they can see what draws a rating and what doesn't. I mean, to me, it seems like the ratings have gone down ever since Vince turned face back in late 1999. I mean, they never really were the same after that. So I don't know if you can blame simply the move to TNN. I think they were going down even before that.
They were going down before TNN.
Yeah, but they really went down after TNN.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, but at the same time, it's like, how much can you attribute that to TNN? It's like, do all those people that watch USA just have no idea that they switched to TNN by now? Come on, I just can't find that TNN excuse valid.
I don't find it valid at all because, if you've ever had a show that you watch every week and the show's not on, you're going to flip through the channels. You're just gonna. And if you don't need to do it the next week, and you'll find it. It's not like it was on a different time on a different day. It was on the same time, the same day, just on a different channel. You can't tell me people were too stupid to not find it.
Vince Russo, but the fact of the matter is, I just noticed such a creative downturn in late 1999 with a mild upswing with the Triple H Foley stuff, but it just hasn't been the same creatively since then. I mean, it just seems like...
I thought the peak of the show was way after Russo left, but there's been, I sensed the downturn really from September of 90, which was almost when Austin came back.
September of 90?
September of 2000.
September of 2000, exactly. Sorry. Yeah, when Austin came back right after, about a month after he came back when Rikishi, I think it was like when Rikishi was revealed to be the driver, all of a sudden I realized that there's just like, whoever would come up with Rikishi already, you know what I mean? It's like
yeah.
From that point forward, I think it's been slowly going down.
And it was a combination of that and the Hunter Angle thing having no real finish.
The Hunter Angle thing but that was at the same time period.
Heartbreaking. That was absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah, them blowing the Hunter Angle thing, and the thing that kept them going up until a month ago was the fact that even though a lot of the stuff wasn't good, is that early this year they had a run of incredible television main events with Angle and Benoit and Rock and Steve Austin and Hunter, like in various forms against each other week after week, and I think that really was strong. And then they still had that Rock and Austin main event coming, which was the one match everyone wanted to see. And then all of a sudden, after that, we haven't been getting that quality of main event anymore. And we've seen Rock and Austin, and Rock's not even on TV. And now there's nothing anyone's looking forward to. And I think that's really hurt a lot, too. Okay. We are totally out of time with that speech. Anyway, that is pretty much it for today. Tomorrow, we're going to have Bobby the Brain Heenan, so pretty much guaranteed an entertaining show. And Thursday, Nick Bockwinkel, who I have been told, and I have been told from people who do other shows that I will love doing the show with Nick Bockwinkel. So that's like the one that I've been looking forward to all week. And Friday, we're going to have Tony Jones back from All Pro Wrestling. So we'll see you all tomorrow at 5.